hung together. Do they have to be hung in a certain order?
Yes.
They must be.
Oh yes, they don't work any other way.
Right.
Yes,
Is that because, for me looking at them, I need to see the progression through them, or because they make a complete tapestry? Or some other reason?
Well, in a way, both. There are certain stages within a series of paintings which are obvious. I mean, my paintings are quite obvious. They're quite bold objects within the paintings, and you can tell quite obviously how they progress. With a triptych, of course, they have also to be related in a certain way. But having said that, with a series of paintings, you could take one out, and it should stand up on its own.
Your paintings are quite large, aren't they?
Well, yes, they're made out of panels. As I said earlier, they're made out of panels of either 92 by 122 centimetres.
Does that mean that they have to be large? You obviously prefer them to be large, but could you express yourselves in a miniature?
Well, I do to a certain extent as a rough sort of kick-off. I do a lot of poster paint sketches, which are not the painting itself. They're things in their own right, but they're in a way like a sort of mid-stage between the idea and just to get a rough idea what the paintings will look like. I was telling you about this triptych that I did from Poland. They're mostly blue with just one or two black, white and red marks on them. Now I had to find out if those black, white and red marks are going to look right, even if on the finished painting they're going to be slightly different. I wanted to know actually if that combination looked right. I did in my mind, but would it look right in the sketch? So if when I put these three pieces of paper together in the studio, the answer is yes, they did, and that's how I came to do it.
So if you had a series of three and the third one didn't work,
keep changing it until you...
Will you keep changing it to try and recreate it, or do you ever accept that you can't achieve can transfer what's up there?
No, I know when it'll work. It's just getting it right. There are paintings which I know will only work in threes, and it's just a matter of getting it right. That's the idea of doing these poster paint sketches, really, to make sure that roughly what it's going to look like.
So I'm thinking now of someone that's a young artist and so on. That if something's not going right, I mean, what strategies do you have to cope with that and to overcome that, or do you leave it for another day? Do you come back, work at it?
That's quite often a good idea, actually, to sleep on it. Yes, I often do that. If you're working late into the night, which I often do, you can get overtired and not think straight and ruin a painting. Oh no, it's nothing. Or you just simply go on to another painting for a while and think about something else. I quite often work on two paintings.
If you were doing a particular painting, do you always start at a particular point on the canvas?
No, I don't think so. I've never thought about it. I don't really think so, but I know where... I mean, I work in a sequence of colours, so for example, I know that I'm going to put the lighter colours on first, for the simple reason if you put on, say, an ultramarine or a black, even more importantly than that, you can't really, on the board, think of anything else, so that dominates the work. So I'll probably start with something like a yellow of one sort or other. Or
so for technical reasons, there's an order of priority for colours going down on canvas, but not of object or not of position.
No, that's right, that's right.
So you couldn't therefore start from... what I'm trying to get at is, if something wasn't working, could you come at it from a different angle and it may work differently, or do you always approach it from the same mental picture?
I think, yes, I would always approach it from the beginning sort of concept, because I know it will work. It's just that I might not be capable of doing it at that time. You know, there are some shapes which you just feel good with, and you know they work.
What's the worst scenario that you had to redraw a picture, repaint a picture before you've got it right?
Well, I've been working on one very recently. I got the idea from just looking out of a coach window on the way back through Belgium, and I just got the idea immediately. It was a type of landscape, but it was also using unusual colours for a landscape. It was blues, reds and whites, and it had some shapes that I felt that I wanted to do in it, which were a real problem. But I knew it would work eventually, and I did several sketches for this, and on the painting itself I worked on it for hours and hours, and I was on the point of actually destroying it, but yet I could see that it still had something that I wanted, so I didn't really want to start right from the beginning. So I just left it for a few hours, came back, and I saw the shapes that were needed, and now it worked. I'm very happy with it.
You saw the shapes, that you saw parts of it that were right?
Yes.
And you played with, you worked on the other parts?
Yes, that's right, yes. I mean, there was a large area, for example, which sort of crept in from the left-hand side, which was black, and it had sort of colours butting into it. But quite simply, to tell you, the paintings were butting in at the wrong angle. It was as simple as that. But I couldn't see that until I did it. It's obvious once I'd done it. And it was right, it looked right. And it's worked.
You painted a large number of works of art over 20 odd years?
Yeah, 30 odd.
30 odd years?
Yes.
You can't keep them all on your living room walls. What happens to them, and which ones do you keep?
Well, this is a difficult question. I mean, I put them into store, obviously, and they're photographed and then they're stored. I don't actually have too many paintings around the house of my own. I don't like paintings all over the place. I just have one or two paintings which I know, which I'm happy with. One particular one I have, which I think I painted in 1978, and it's just one it's not a very large one actually, and that's been on the wall for more or less all that time. And I just like that. But normally I like to get rid of paintings.
You say you just like that. You just like that, or it means something particular because the symbols are particularly strong symbols here?
Well, it's a painting that was a sort of, in a way, a mid-stage between something that was representational. It was one that was quite highly coloured, very highly stylized as well. And it had various experiments in it which were, in a way, a turning point. One example is that I had various areas of colours which I surrounded by an equal black line, and that isolated the colours, but it also at the same time made the design feel stronger, and that just worked. It was just one of those sort of paintings that sort of worked at that time, and I often look at it. But normally I don't like to look at my work after a while. I get not exactly tired of it, but I'd like to get rid of it and go on to something else. Mm-hmm. And once again, if you see them in a gallery, of course, they take on a different mood or meaning. But I like to start on something new.
You mentioned you're still working on the Spanish theme.
I'm working on the Spanish and on the Polish one, more or less, sort of alternatively.
Mm. Do you play music when you're working?
Yes.
You mentioned Spanish music
in
particular.
Yes, I do. Yes.
That influences the output and the style and the...
I don't like background music, but I think I love flamenco music, and flamenco music to a great extent is often played within a noise of a lot of Spanish people or in a cafe or a restaurant, and I find that works very well with my work. But I don't like sort of endless pop music just playing just to sort of kill a quietness. Mm-hmm. That just would actually put me off from painting.
You're using music much more proactively as part of the creative process.
It is really, yes. Yes.
And the Polish stuff, is there music involved in that? Or
no, that's purely ideas. The idea of going to Poland, seeing lots of different shapes and ideas and different ways of living, if you like, that somebody in Poland wouldn't actually even notice. I did, because it's completely different. And I just found I had a wealth of ideas. I spent some time in the Jewish district in Krakow, and from that I've got quite a lot of ideas for paintings, which I know will keep me for the next year or so, I'm quite sure.
I won't say how do you get ideas, but how do you set up situations which will, you believe, create more ideas?
It really, in a way, happens. It's just something that you know you're keen on. The original idea that you're very keen on, and it excites you, and you do it, and you think, yes, you know, I could do something from that, and so it goes on. And I think if you're sort of excited about something, it just has its own momentum.
I was thinking the mountains, the snow. Yeah. You said you went down the Jewish quarter. Yeah. Do you find by going to a different sort of environment, it's more likely, therefore, because it's fresh to you, to generate new thoughts and therefore new ideas?
Yes, really stupid things. It can be things like just a little box of flowers on a windowsill or something. There's a cemetery in Krakow where I've been several times. It's one of the oldest in Poland, I believe. And they've got some little flowers and whatever, which are quite unusual because, for example, Jewish people don't put flowers on graves, they put stones, which is another thing. And these stones, of course, are shapes that you can use in your paintings as well. And I've done this a lot. But to see this one vase of flowers in a certain place actually gave me an idea for a painting. And I did a very, very quick sketch while I was there. And that will make quite a large painting, a feature painting.
So you already have mapped out some future ideas.
Oh, yes.
How far ahead, I mean, you know you've got things you want to do. Do you know in 2 or 3 years where you might be going?
Not exactly,
what directions?
Not exactly, but I do know that I'm always way behind what I want to do. I mean, I always sort of I have more ideas than I can sort of cope with in a way, and sometimes time passes so much that the sort of ideas got lost, and I never do it.
But would you say the strongest ideas devise natural selection?
Yes. Yes, some things that always keep coming back, and you do a drawing and that always sort of skids around the studio, and that turns up as being, you know, the painting that you want to finish.
Nick, your work's very abstract. Has it always been as abstract as it is now?
Not really. Not really. When I left college, I was doing very representational work, but I didn't feel really that's what I wanted to do. So I spent, well, quite a long time actually experimenting to push representational things into an abstracted form, something that I had a sort of a freedom to work in, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Did that happen sequentially, or did you have a blinding flash of inspiration and change styles, or?
Well, I just felt that I wanted to. I'm not. For me, I don't really like representational work. This is for me, that is. I feel that if you want to do something that's totally representational, it's better to make a photograph of it or whatever. That would certainly be my case. But so what I wanted to do was actually to make a series of languages, if you want, a series of subjects that I could colour and I could make that were based on something that was representational, but would in fact, when you see the end result, wouldn't be. But it'd be my way of portraying that particular subject.
You say languages, a series of languages, symbols or representations?
Symbols, really. Symbols that mean something for me. I mean, I can sort of have a certain symbol which I like, and I feel I can...
Such as?
Something, it could be like a tremendous loop or a large triangle which could be have a certain line or shape on it. For example, I did quite a lot of landscapes, my style of landscapes, using a series of dots. Well, those dots, for example, I got from the sides of motorways where they are planting new trees. And as you sort of pass between them, you see all these dots, and then they turn into lines. Well, these I just made a note of these, and actually I use these in paintings where there isn't such a thing, but it's just a shape that I like. And according to the syntactic structure, if you like, of these shapes, then that's how the painting arrives.
So your current style evolved through a series of processes, experiments?
Yes, experimental work. Two types of experiments, really. One which was black and white, and one which was very highly coloured. And these were actually, in a way, very disciplined, and over a period of about 10 or 12 years. and I was working to a goal, a very, very simple goal, really. I just wanted a way